In this video, we're going to look at SPSS statistics. And as we saw in a previous video, there are three sort of versions of it. There's the desktop version, the client version, and the server version. The server version lets you, after you've created your statistical packages, it lets you run them on a server, and then of course, like a typical client server environment, multiple clients can go in and grab the data from it. So that's the server version. The client version allows you to, as it says, to run on a local server. So your data in a client server environment again would be in the server, and then the client itself is of course running on your, say, laptop, for example. Now there's a separate version called desktop, and as we looked at a bit earlier, it is the version that allows you essentially to develop for later deployment on a server environment, and the desktop allows you to have offline access, so you can actually run statistics, the SPSS statistics program on your desktop computer and grab a bunch of data as if you had a kind of mini client server environment running on your desktop version. So let's take a look at, in this video, the graphical user interface, or the GUI, for SPSS statistics. Okay, so in your client VM on the IBM Counter Fraud or ICFM machine system, you can click on the Start button and then type in SPSS, and then you'll see these various products, some of these various products that we've been discussing. If you look at the third entry here, you'll see IBM Statistics, and we're going to open that one, so SPSS Statistics. Now, when you first do that, you may get a message about licensing. So, for example, you might get a message like this: error, no server given for daemon host on SPSS prod.inf for environment variable ls host. There's plenty of good information online about how to fix this, but essentially to fix it, it's pretty straightforward. If you open up a command shell, I open up PowerShell and type cmd to go to cmd command shell, and you do a dir space /s, which means do a subdirectory search, and a /b to give you a bare listing so you don't have lots of dates and times, and you search the entire C drive, which is c:\\star, and then for a particular pattern, and this is the SPSS prod.inf. And it turns out, which is when in the error message we were looking at, and it turns out that this is simply a file. So you can select this text, for example, and type in Notepad, and then hit right click, open up the file, and what it's saying is that you didn't provide a server name in this box, or at least not a valid server name. So in our case, we can simply type in analytics.ibm.com and hit save, and then once we reload the program, it should work just fine. Now, I actually am not getting that message in statistics, I'm getting it in Modeler, and you may indeed also be getting it in Modeler. So it's the same approach. Notepad, and open this up, go down to our daemon host, and again just type in the name of your server. And notice too that the reason this works the way it does is because in our environment here is because if you look at the ICFM topology, and this would be of course different if you're not using ICFM, but here we go, we see the SPSS Modeler Premium Server, and that's in fact the name of the server in our environment, analytics.ibm.com. So now if you close this file and minimize all this, you should now be able to open it up. So I'm going to try that. And we'll go to Modeler because this is the program that actually gave me the message. And there we go. Now it will load. But of course this video is not about Modeler, it's about statistics, so we're going to close this, and I'm just simply going to open up SPSS statistics, and we'll carry on from there. And just prior to doing that, I want to point out one last thing, which is that if you do have a lot of trouble with your licensing, remember that, or note that there is a license authorization wizard here, and there's also one for a statistics commuter license in our case. But if you click on the license authentication wizard, you'll get a lot of information about what your licenses are and for which products, and this may be very helpful, especially if you have trouble locating or having trouble launching SPSS because of licensing reasons. But of course, this video is about SPSS statistics. It's not about the modeler. So I'll close the modeler, we'll go back into statistics. And here we go. So this is what you'll first see when you log into the system. It'll say SPSS statistics. You can close this and notice in the GUI that you will first be presented with something called the data editor. And you'll see something essentially that looks like Excel with many, many rows and lots of columns. But in the world of statistics, a row is sometimes called a case, and the columns here are actually what are called variables. Now these are statistical terms, and those terms are described really nicely in this book here, Statistics in Plain English, 3rd edition by Timothy Urdan. And essentially it is a way, you'll see it listed here roughly around page 58, that a case corresponds to the rows in the sort of spreadsheet design that we've been looking at, because a case is a grouping of variables, and we just really saw that, right? If each row represents one, potentially many variables, and if you look at this book here, I know it's a bit hard to see, but you'll see Daniel Kaplan here, and as the book's author of statistical modeling, and he has a really nice description of what a case is. A case is not always people, as he says. Let's zoom in here a little bit. Any data set is something like a shell collection. It consists of cases, the objects in the collection. So each case has one or more attributes or qualities called variables, and the variable emphasizes that it is differences or variation that is often of our primary interest. So basically, if a person filled out a survey and provided information like age and sex and date of birth, that sort of thing, all of those would be a variable, and row 1 here would be case 1 or person 1. And this is really where the term case study comes from if you wanted to look at an individual person.